The Sims 4 Jungle Adventure released before the season's expansion, and the game pack already had its challenges, potentially lethal critters and traps that can kill a sim. You usually have time to save them, but not always. Sims 4 Seasons came out this summer, bringing potential bad weather and a temperature system that can cause sims to overheat or freeze to death. I decided to give adventuring a try with the expansion and try to use some of its features to offset the new dangers it carries over to the Jungle Adventure game pack. I started a sim with loves the outdoors because he'll spend so much time outside. The new Archaeology aspiration was a natural pick. I also gave him Genius and Cheerful because these two moodlets can come up at random and help a sim sometimes get a boost when they have access to few luxuries. Starting a fresh file and heading straight to the jungle isn't the greatest idea. You do need something to come home to after all, and a little preparation will make things go much smoother. You could actually try living there, but it's a lot of vacation renewals. I feel this test will tell me if living off the jungle is possible anyway. In order to offset dangers brought by weather and make my sim happier, I did a few things. I planted a bunch of plantains to give my sim a supply of food for the road. 2 bee boxes gives me 6 honey every day or so, and that can be used if a sim is in an emergency and overheating or freezing to death. I've chosen summer deliberately here to up the challenge a tad, and it'll definitely be heat issues I face. You could always hightail it back to base, but who wants their adventure interrupted by the weather? While waiting 3 days on honey to accumulate and some plantains to grow, I gain a couple levels in archaeology by reading skill books. Having a better knowledge of the main skill will make things a tad easier and help me to get the cooler abilities without doing so much XP grinding while paying by the day for a lodge. When the plantains are finally grown, I get over 99 of them as well as a supply of honey to use in emergencies. I won't need it as much as I thought, but it's still helpful as it recovers hunger 2 to 3 times better than fresh fruits and veggies do. I was also careful to make certain my sim had already chosen an umbrella in case it rains in the jungle. Too many uncomfortable moods and my sim might outright refuse to work. We'd rather keep him happy at all times. It's finally time to travel to Selvadorada. I select one of the cheapest lots. There aren't many amenities, but it's only $220 a day, which is a rate I can definitely pass in terms of earnings so long as I track down enough artifacts. In preparation, I spent some time talking to the locals. Talking to them specifically about their culture raises the Selvadorada local culture skill. It gives advice on exploring the jungle, some locations of interest, and at the last level, the sim gains knowledge of how to avoid the worst the insects and plasma bats in the jungle have to offer. Just spending a day doing this, I get to level 4 of 5. I should have pushed a bit more, or did so while confident, as it would have given me the 5th level and access to the secret shop along with the bug dodging abilities. My sim found it boring talking to locals for some reason, perhaps due to all the repetitive socials, even though I was mixing them up. Here he is in a foreign land and he's bored out of his skull. A visit to the merchants in the square lets me buy items from their tables. You absolutely want some of the waterfall bottles, some baits for insects, which can be used not only to stop them attacking you, but also to finish key events as you explore new areas of the jungle. It can basically help you to avoid trouble or get more treasure. Using the buy supplies option is also a necessity. You can find items like the machete here, along with the very portable pop-up archaeology table that will let you assess items in the field. I waited to do this type of work from the comforts of home, but bought the table anyway. Although I'd like to leave Selvadorada with a profit, my lodging and the supplies have already set me back almost 4,000 simoleons. I'm hoping for a few good finds and a lot of little ones. Thankfully, archaeology expands greatly as you level the skill. Time to do some digging. We're setting out to Balamzia Trailhead to enter the jungle, but I'd like to point out that players who own Outdoor Retreat will find the shopkeepers at the market sell tents, cots, and other items meant for camping. These can be very handy along your journey. Players who own only Jungle Adventure will have to head back or sleep in bushes like I do in this video. It's not so bad, it just takes more actions on your part. You should make a point to top off needs before ever leaving, just to avoid going back home over a silly problem. In order to progress in the jungle, you have to get through the overgrowth blocking the paths. Naturally, my sim loses his machete right away. Sometimes you find machetes in treasure chests, so maybe I'll get lucky. I don't want to go back just for that. Each time you go through an entryway in the jungle, you're met with a text adventure. Skill checks as well as item checks frequently come up. It may rely on you having logic, fitness, or charisma skill, or ask you to consume an item like your machete or some bait to avoid a danger. Failing to pass these results in a negative moodlet most of the time. You'll also frequently miss treasure. Naturally, local culture comes up here as well. Understanding of their mythology can come in handy when dealing with thousand-year-old traps. My sim has taken Jungle Adventure's Archaeology aspiration, which has you looking for treasure and checking artifacts for authenticity. For this reason, excavation sites are my main objective right now. For now, I have to travel quite far to find each of them. I find a wild avocado tree here, one of the additions of the game pack. I'm glad I brought bananas because I wouldn't want to eat it. I'd rather get to reproduce avocados at home. Jungle Adventure plants aren't part of seasons and grow year-round, so avocados can make a good target for condensing a garden down to a few plants. Digging with their hands will make Sims uncomfortable sometimes from sore hands, and you don't want too many of these negative moodlets piling up or you probably can't adventure. Having gardening skill actually makes this much better. It must be the knowledge of pulling weeds that helps. The jungle branches into a few distinct paths. Keeping your bearings is key. Remember where you entered and you're good and can avoid wasting some time. This is one of the treasure rooms mentioned by the locals. Excavation sites are my main objective, but there is also a treasure chest here that will give me plenty to analyze. While out and about in the jungle, at any time you can be attacked by its insects. Having repellent of some sort, your sim will automatically use it and avoid the negative drawbacks. When you're all out of repellent, you're at their mercy unless you have local culture skill. After this rude interruption by the insects, my sim can begin to do his first excavation. He's pretty unhappy, but a bit of fruit and honey helps with this. Unless he's unwilling to work, maybe I shouldn't care, but there's lots of skill XP to be gained seeking artifacts, and I hate wasting it due to an uncomfortable mood. The difference is pretty vast when you go from a minus 20% penalty to a plus 10. When you finish digging up an excavation site, you'll find an artifact. Maybe. There are 3 types of items to be found. Artifacts are ancient items that come in a variety of materials like gold and bronze. Artifacts can also be counterfeit, which you may as well just sell. You determine if an artifact is real or fake and what material it's made of by authenticating it. Relics are powerful and may be combined to actually create items with magical properties. Treasures are simply worth gobs of money for their size and are often found in excavation sites and the temple treasure chests. Treasure chests have better drop rates than excavation sites and may contain relics, artifacts, or treasures as well as money and adventuring supplies. Always open these, they do respawn when you revisit the jungle. Given this first room was technically a dead end, my sim goes back to the entrance where I had been careful to note where I came from. The jungle is not a maze. The exits are basically predetermined, but the temple you'll get is indeed random. At times, certain paths may be blocked off. All options will be grayed out, which means you have to come back at a later time. Pay attention to the message you get when you hover over it, as it may tell you how long it's going to be before the path is opened. When Sims need to relieve their bladders or get low on energy, you can make usage of the many wee bushes found throughout Selvadorada. Sims can go inside to relieve themselves or sleep on the bush for a quick nap. You may need to nap a few times to recover a significant chunk, but it's definitely possible to get your energy back this way. Just don't do this after your sim has just used the bush for a much messier need. The bush starts to give off a nasty aura and Sims do know what they have just slept in. In this segment of jungle and off the ledge there, you can find a tree of emotion. This gives you a bunch of berries for each type of emotion, color-coded to help you identify them. If you're not sure which does which, go off the name. These are helpful to solve a puzzle in the Omiskin Temple in which you must step on a certain type of switch while in an emotional state. So long as you bring something to eat with you, you can explore the majority of the jungle in a single trip. Use food to fill hunger. Your cell phone gets service, so they're social. Bushes can be napped and peed in for energy and bladder. The main problem is probably fun, but you may need to just use your phone for that or play in the rain and do other miscellaneous activities. The point being, all of your needs can be filled in the jungle so long as you have something to eat. The shopkeepers will actually sell a GCRE, a play on MREs, which are military food. This is a grilled cheese ready to eat. When you reach this segment of jungle, you're basically one door away from the temple. One door may be sealed and lead to the royal baths, others lead to fishing spots, and one leads to the temple. The fishing spot ones lead to places where you can catch the rare fish included with Jungle Adventure, which are the armored catfish and electric eel. When you enter the big room, the door that leads left is the royal baths. Straight ahead of that is the first fishing spot. The temple's in the center, and far right is another fishing spot. The temple entrance is next to the long road that goes off by itself. It has a totem there, and it's kind of clear when you zoom far out that that's where the temple should be. When you reach the temple, take the emotion berries from the tree outside and try to top off your Sim's needs. The main purpose of the temple is near guaranteed treasure and a high chance at relic bases and tops. In order to get to that treasure room, you must complete a series of puzzles. Your archaeology skill is heavily relied upon here. Using the analyze on traps and gadgets in the rooms, you'll sometimes rule out this or that option. Try to identify all the possible switches on each level and analyze all of them unless your sim gets lucky and determines one is the correct option. Each option on a mechanism will have one of three symbols. A question mark means we don't know if it's the correct answer. A red thumb down means we know it is not. A green thumbs up gives you the go-ahead to use that option. Choose incorrectly and you'll often be hit with a minor curse. Sometimes you may even be poisoned, which is another matter altogether and something you can look up on my guide. Sometimes all of them are wrong, which means that you need to find another mechanism. The only really weird puzzle is the one where you use emotion berries to step on a plate while in a particular emotion. Sometimes when you need to select a certain type of option, there will be an image on the wall, like a leaf or arrowhead, that is a big clue should your archaeology fail to find you the answer. As you level archaeology, you'll more often find the correct answer on your first analysis, although there are often at least two mechanisms on each floor of the temple. Finding the treasure room in the temple will cause the temple to reset on your next visit. You'll be able to explore it again, find new treasures and relic bases and tops. Use your pop-up archaeology table to study the artifacts you found and determine their authenticity. There are a lot of treasures and artifacts to be discovered. If you get poisoned, you can find helpful information linked in the description. Cases of poison begin with you having some swirly dots and a moodlet that either goes away or doesn't. If it doesn't go away, you have fatal poison. You do, however, have 3 days to fix it. That's plenty of time to Google an answer. So, what overall was the result of me trying to counter Seasons' temperatures and weather with its own features? Well, Seasons didn't really lay it on thick. Rain was an inconvenience, but the umbrella covered that. Midsummer could lead to full thermostats and thus risk of overheating. I only needed a few honey, in that case tops. However, I don't regret growing some food. I ate over 60 food over the course of 10 days in the jungle. I plan to release more about Jungle Adventure over the next month, along with other things. Thank you all for taking the time to actually watch this. I'll eventually get around the archaeologist, tops and bottoms of relics, and other things. There's plenty of stuff to talk about in Jungle Adventure. I suppose the goal here was this is a primer. This has a lot of advice about just navigating the game pack and all of its features. It's not really honing in on any one thing. Thank you for your time, and hit the bell and subscribe to be notified of more content.